Today in Not Normal IT, we're going to talk about the happy Valentine's Day and the ghost stories of tragic love. Deep in earth, my love is lying, and I must weep alone, says Edgar Allan Poe. They say tragic events can leave spirits on earth, and passionate love so often ends in tragedy. They also say unfinished business can leave souls wandering the earth. How often have we felt a romance end without closure? Today, on the most romantic of the holidays, I thought we might explore these stories of love. Love so passionate, it leaves a heartbroken supernatural stain on earth. Romance has always had a dark side, something sinister, possessive, even fatal lurks behind the desire to attract and be attracted. For centuries, something spiritual, even supernatural, has been suspected in the ways of lovers in the night. Shakespeare called lovemaking the beast with two backs. In many ages, the monomaniacal lust of a man for one woman has been blamed on witchcraft. The French refer to the sleep that follows intercourse as le petit mort, the little death. There is a night side to our amours, a dark, animalistic release that takes place when we are alone with our love, drenched with shadows and candlelight. Something vestigial and primitive about romance returns us to our less civilized forms. And for some of us, it is one of the few moments that we can genuinely sense our relationship to infinity and the realm of spirits. Consequently, romance has become one of the most prominent themes in Gothic fiction. From Dracula to Phantom of the Opera, from Wuthering Heights to The Raven, nothing bridges the gap between reality and imagination, the physical and the spiritual, quite so nimbly as carnal attraction, and no genre is more capable of deconstructing these emotions quite so nimble as horror. In supernatural horror in literature, H.P. Lovecraft famously declared fear to be the oldest human emotion. Without contesting that observation, I think love, that messy tangle of desire, admiration, lust, possessiveness, and passion, is almost certainly the second. After our basic needs have been met, we find ourselves warm, dry, sheltered, and fed. Our very next need is emotional. The thirst for company, for understanding, and belonging. In short, once our survival is no longer in question, the human spirit is most desperate for love. Love has left deep impressions in human culture, in art, literature, philosophy, religion, and government. Whole genres of films, stories, and songs are devoted to its expression. Some of the most critical human rites of passage, like proms, weddings, balls, festivals, surely revolve around the celebration of eros. Many of the most passionate and aggressive political battles of the past 2 centuries have involved debating the appropriateness of marginalized love and its expressions. Nearly every religion on earth exalts love as the most divine of human emotions and use the wedding ceremony as a spiritual reenactment of their theological values. By being near to lovers, we are permitted to briefly catch a glimpse of eternity. And yet, as even the most romantic among us are wont to recognize, love comes with a darkness as bleak as its light is illuminating. Love can be heaven, but it can be hell just as easily. And this is a concept in which many of the best writers of supernatural fiction have found powerful value. Let's share our stories right now. Let's begin with The Bride on the Bridge. In Stowe, Vermont, lies a covered bridge they call Emily's Bridge. There are several versions of Emily's sad tale. Some versions say that Emily and her boyfriend were meeting at the bridge to elope. Since her parents did not approve, he never came, and she hung herself from a rafter. Another version says Emily was left at the wedding altar. She hoped on a carriage to find her love. When she reached the bridge, one of the horses was startled and she died in an accident. Some versions even say she was killed by runaway horses on the way to her wedding. Whatever way you put it, Emily reached a tragic fate. Visitors to the bridge have reported scratch marks on their cars and bodies, and also strange noises, footsteps, roads tightening, girls screaming. If you park your car on the bridge, you might hear banging on the car or her body's feet dragging on the car's roof. Spooky, isn't it? The second story, it's called a deadly love triangle. El Castillo de San Marcos in St. Augustine, Florida, is the oldest masonry fort in the United States. The site itself is dripping with paranormal activity, but today we are going to focus on an affair that led to murder. In 1784, Colonel Garcia Marti brought his young wife Dolores to the fort. He wasn't the most devoted husband and often ignored his wife. Thus, she found other ways to spend her time. She began an affair with her husband's assistant, the Captain Manuel Avila. Dolores wore a very unique perfume, which Garcia smelled on Manuel one day. Shortly after, Dolores and Manuel went missing. Garcia told everyone that Dolores had returned to Spain and that Manuel had a special assignment in Cuba. About 50 years or so later, a hidden room was found in a dungeon behind a brick wall. What it is in there, what they found, well, the remains of a woman and a man. Some versions even say chained to the wall. Some may say in a pile of ashes. Sightings of a woman with a white dress have been reported on the side. Could it be Dolores? It's worth our respect. Our next story, it's called A Forbidden Love. Minnie Quay was the 15-year-old daughter of James and Marian Quay. They lived in Forester, Michigan, so they often saw boats coming and out of town. Minnie fell in love with a sailor. Not much known about him, and her parents disapproved of this crush. One day, word came to town that his boat sank. Minnie was quite distraught, especially since her parents had forbidden her to say goodbye when he has left. Sometime after, she was babysitting her infant brother for her parents. She left her house and walked towards the waterfront. People near the town inn, the Tanner house, waved as she walked by. Suddenly, their friendly faces turned to faces of horror as she walked into the Lake Huron. Legend says she still walks the beach, waiting for her sailor to return. More frightening versions say she lures young girls towards the water and towards their deaths. Be careful with the water, even the lake there. Our next story, it's called A Romantic Murder Plot. Jesse Strang deserted his wife and children and began a new life in Albany, New York. He lived under a new name, Joseph Burton, and began working at the Van Rensselaer's residence at Cherry Hill. He caught the eye of the affluent Elsie Van Rensselaer, a married woman. Jesse and Elsie decided their love could really flourish without Elsie's husband, John Whipple, around. In May of 1827, after a failed attempt of arsenic poisoning, Jesse Strang shot John Whipple. Jesse and Elsie tried to hide their murder plot, but they didn't cover their tracks very well. Murder by Gaslight, a new favorite blog, describes the sensational trial that followed. In June, Jesse Strang confessed to the murder and told prosecutors where to find the rifle. He believed that if Elsie was convicted as well, her powerful family connections would get them both pardoned, and he tried to lay the blame on her. But when his lawyer and the prosecutor told him that nothing he said against Elsie would lighten his punishment, he withdrew his confession. Members of the household testified that they had heard Strang spread the stories of prowlers out to kill Whipple. The merchants who sold him the rifle and the arsenic testified, as did hotel keepers who had seen Strang and Elsie together. But it was Strang's confessions, admitted over the objection of the defense, which sealed his fate. The jury deliberated for 15 minutes before returning a verdict of guilt. Elsie's trial followed the same course as Strang's, except the prosecution tried to call Strang as a witness. There was much debate over his eligibility to testify because he had been convicted but not yet sentenced. In the end, the judge would not allow his testimony. The prosecution rests, and the jury, without leaving their seats, acquitted Elsie Whipple. The Albany establishment had closed ranks to save one of their own from a public hanging. Jesse Strang was found guilty of first-degree murder, and Elise Whipple was found not guilty. According to an Albany tourist site, all members of this love triangle roam the halls of Cherry Hill. People have witnessed a ghost on the bottom floor of Cherry Hill and believe it is Mr. Whipple. He is not hostile, but gives off a feeling of anger. Jesse Strang's ghost is seen where the gallows once stood wearing the same clothes he wore the day of his execution. Imagine repeatedly running into both your exes in the afterlife. That's pretty tragic. As we can see, tragic love often ends with lingering ghosts. There is an even type of ghost, the white lady, that is often attached to a story of betrayal by a lover. The white lady appears in folklore all over the world. To name a few, in the United States, Czech Republic, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, and even more. If you don't believe in ghosts, you can acknowledge the universal power of tragic love in storytelling. And what better metaphor for heartbreak than a ghost? What do you think of those stories? Do you really like them? What do you think that love will do in the afterlife? Tragic drama, hate, love, everything has a part in every story. If you want to know even more, you could enjoy about the tragedy in the Valentines. But be careful with those paranormal activities in each day and each place. What should you do? If you can't manage it, please don't bother. and run. Have a good sleep. If you dare, of course. Hug and kiss your beloved one and hope it doesn't your last night together. Sleep tight, sleep tight.